Hey, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Howie Jacobson. My day job is as a coach, helping people live better lives. I coach executives and leaders, I coach entrepreneurs, and I coach civilians who are looking to improve their lives, their health, their relationships. Basically, it allows me to do what I didn't think was possible, which is to help people completely erase bad habits and different ways of being, erase negative feelings and replace them with positive ones, rather than just help people develop new strategies to compete with the old ones or new thought patterns to debate the old thought patterns. And I'm looking for people to work with. And I have reduced my rates a lot so that I can just get as much practice in as I can. So I am going to raise them back up to my normal fees, but right now I just need a lot of practice and feedback, and I have teachers and mentors. So if you're interested in getting my best coaching, better than I've ever done, at a big discount, email me, hj@plantyourself.com. So let's get on with the show. In June 2019, I interviewed Philip Shepard about his book, Radical Wholeness. I had just returned from a workshop that I had done with him, and it was an incredible experience, an incredible conversation with a wonderful human being. And we talked all about kind of deep spiritual, philosophical, practical issues related to embodiment. And I wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but I kind of did the exercises and sort of about being more present in the world, present to experience now, not having such a big split between the mind and the body. And I saw that he had written a new book called Deep Fitness that had one of those titles that was sort of, like 30 minutes a day to great fitness. I thought that's a weird thing for him to be writing about. And I was even wondering, is this some kind of sellout? Like maybe the embodiment stuff wasn't working and he needed a new gig. Eventually, I bought the book and started reading it and realized that it had immediately changed my life, changed how I thought about fitness, about working out, about lifting weights, about how I am aging. I recommended the book to 3 or 4 people immediately whom I knew had been struggling with their own fitness, with injuries, with diseases. And for people who, I want to be healthy, but I don't really embrace the workout culture. This approach was a revelation and a lifeline and a lifesaver. I'm so happy that Philip agreed to come back to talk about deep fitness. It's already changed how I'm working out here in Spain, and I hope it will give you insight, pleasure, and years of healthy strength to come. So without further ado, Philip Shepard, welcome back to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here, Howie.
It's great. It's great to have it. As I was mentioning before we started recording, I'm here to get inspired to do some of the intense weight training that we're going to be talking about, and that's less scary than it sounds.
Thank you. Yes, it is.
I realized as those words were coming out of my mouth, I think half the listeners are like, okay, well, I'll skip this one. I'll wait for something more spiritual or more plant-based or whatever. But this is life-changing stuff. So before we get into your new book, your latest book, Deep Fitness, I kind of want to bring people up to speed who may not know you, who haven't listened to our past conversation, because this really, when I saw that you had written a book on fitness, it really seemed like a right angle to the work that I had known you for. So can you kind of introduce yourself?
Yeah. Embodiment has been my lifelong passion, and it's like been hacking my way through the jungle to find the path. And I was deeply, deeply influenced by the East. I went to Japan as a teenager and studied classical no theater, which is the most embodied performing art I've ever encountered. And in Japan, they revere the belly. Their name for the belly is hara. And they have phrases about the belly that we have about the head. So as a teenager, I'm introduced to this deep intelligence in the body, and it guided me through my life. So at this point, I've written 3 books. New Self, New World was my first. Radical Wholeness was my second. And I, more important than that in a way to me is that I've got over 150 practices that I've developed to help heal this divide, this sundering between our thinking and our being. So we've been systematically taught that we can think more clearly if we sort of shut down the noise below the neck and just concentrate up here, and it's deleterious to almost every facet of our lives.
So one thing that occurs to me is when you started out by saying I've devoted my life to sort of embodiment. I'm not sure that I really know what that means, and I've studied with you. I've read your book. I've taken a workshop, and I'm certain that for a lot of people, it's just a bunch of syllables.
Such a good point, Howie. So let me offer my definition in a way of embodiment. Embodiment is a state in which the whole of your intelligence comes into coherence with the present. So we fracture our intelligence. I mean, it's one thing to think with the head. It's another thing to feel from the heart. And it's either or within us. They don't belong together. It's, a gut feeling, and then there's reason. And there is this divide. And the legs have intelligence. The back has intelligence. So there are all these fields of intelligence within the body that we have cordoned off from one another. So embodiment, to begin with, is to release the body from the prison of those cordoned off intelligences, that you feel its intelligence as a whole. But, to feel its intelligence as a whole necessitates an awareness of the present, because the body, what it most deeply feels is the present, and there is a mindfulness to the present that we join and we are guided by. And that's not possible if you're sitting in your head, taking charge, guiding yourself.
So you just put me off in my mind on a huge tangent that I don't think I want to go too far down, but I can't not mention it, because you started off with the word coherence with the present. And I have been studying, learning, practicing something called coherence therapy, which is a kind of experiential therapy that I'm applying to my coaching. And the idea is that everyone's behavior, no matter how seemingly self-destructive or other destructive, is coherent, in that it's based on it's based on their implicit memories locked in the body. So, for example, if I was abused as a child for doing X, I could know that I'm no longer a child. The people who abused me are no longer here. I don't have to, I can do X now without fear, but the implicit memory in my body is blocking it. And I'm really curious what you've seen around the embodiment in terms of helping to heal the behavioral and psychological traumas that we bring from the past and impose on the present when they really aren't present.
Yeah, it's such a great question. I'll avoid the desire to do a deep dive into it, but the way I understand it is embodiment goes through 2 stages. The first stage, my understanding of the body is that it is essentially a resonator, like a singing bowl, and it resonates to the present and attunes to it. And what we've done in our culture is it's basically like filling the singing bowl with sand, because we have so many unintegrated energies in the body. We store emotions and lock them up. We store ideas and lock them up. And any any unintegrated energy is reactive. And how, so the first stage of embodiment is to feel those unintegrated energies and begin to integrate them, to begin to bring them home. And when I talk about bringing them home, I feel the ground of my being in the pelvic bowl, deep, deep, to the pelvic floor. It's to the pelvic floor I return when I want to attune to the present, when I want to feel my deepest truth. And so the first stage of embodiment is recovering the spaciousness, our natural spaciousness, our natural fluidity within the body. And then the second stage of embodiment is that ability to feel, this is going to sound strange, but to feel empty to the world, that there is room within the body for the world to be felt. And then I am carried, I am guided. But you can't get there by deciding to get there. There's a lot of work involved in recognizing the unintegrated energies and giving them, I feel them as orphans within the body. They've been exiled from this family of our being, and they're put on hold. And the way an orphan is welcomed into a family is through love, not by demanding or insisting. It is love that brings it home. And so it is with these energies to fully accept them, to love them. And in my experience, what isn't expressed cannot be integrated. So in that stage of integration, the expression is needed, whether it's rage, whether it's sorrow, whether it's grief, whatever it is. Once the expression has happened, then that energy can be brought home and integrated. And that integration, it's a little, do you know what a murmuration of starlings is?
From your book, I remember a photograph in Radical Wholeness.
It's these like 250,000 birds flying like an amoeba in the sky and rippling, and you imagine one little starling not part of the murmuration, and it's reactive, and its flight is unsteady, and it finds its way into the murmuration, and it is harmonized by the whole. And that's for me what happens when these orphans are integrated.
And it's so interesting that you're using the words orphans and exiles. I found my way to this coherence therapy through internal family systems, which speaks specifically of exiles as parts of ourselves that have not been integrated and that need to be approached with, above all, respect and love and patience.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's kind of mind, and I don't know why, is one of the exercises you had us do, and this, I think it was May 2019. It was before the craziness down in Greensboro, North Carolina. I remember you were asking us to pick up a pen off the floor, either like the normal way we would do it, like looking at it and thinking about it, or dropping our consciousness as best we could into our pelvic bowl and then reaching for the pen. And I remember it, I don't remember the details, but I remember it being a weirdly different experience.
Yeah. So this actually pertains to deep fitness, because our relationship to the body is like the relationship of someone to a donkey that they're riding. And we tell the body what to do, and we beat it to go harder or to go faster. And so as soon as you treat the body in that way, the body feels mechanical. And you are organizing the mechanics to pick up the pencil, for example. What that exercise explored was allowing the body to come into felt relationship with the pencil, for example. And then you're no longer sitting in your head organizing the mechanics. You are carried by that relationship. And for me too, it's a completely different experience.
So yeah, it felt more. I felt I would say less clumsy in doing it.
Yeah.
More at ease, more at sort of natural.
Yes.
Like it was. Like, I mean, I do things all the time. I use my body all the time. And I guess a lot of the time it is coming from that place because I'm not sort of monitoring and beating. Like I know if I want to reach for a glass of water, my body can do it. I can keep, doom scrolling while I drink water. I don't but to sort of consciously empty the mind and notice how my body responds to its environment like part of a murmuration as opposed to a bull in a china shop, which is, I've been accused of that in my life.
So I might just point out that when we come back to the body's intelligence, we come back to what it feels, to what it understands, to its realizations, and what the body most deeply feels is the present. What the body most deeply understands is that it belongs. It belongs to the world. The tree, when you feel the tree from the body, you feel it as kinship. You feel family. These living beings sharing this moment together. And what the body most deeply realizes is that everything is alive. And so coming back to that pencil, when you're really feeling the pencil from the body, there is a living relationship between you. Its presence and your presence are brought into harmony. And, the more deeply I drop into the body, the more deeply I feel the aliveness of everything around me.
I wrote down the body belongs to the world and put it in quotes. And we were talking before we started recording about, this and that, the weather and the wildfires that you've been experiencing in your home country of Canada and the wildfires that are raging here in Spain. And a lot of the story that I hear from people and that I kind of, buy into is that my body doesn't belong here, that I'm the problem, that me and my civilization is like, we don't have a right to do this to the earth. We don't, and which cascades in like, we don't belong here. Like I'll go for a hike and like, I'll see trash and I'm like, oh, it'd be so beautiful if it wasn't for me and my fellow humans. Can the body belonging have a role in that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think what doesn't belong is not the body, but our relationship with the body. So we have a tyrannical relationship. We have a top-down relationship with the body. And there is no relationship that is more primary than your relationship with the body. So that relationship becomes the template for our other relationships with the trees, the grass, the sea, the air. And we have a tyrannical relationship, an exploitative relationship with the earth that to which we seamlessly belong, on which we depend for absolutely everything. And that, to me, is the canker in our culture, is this dissociation of our thinking from our being, this top-down relationship, not with the body, but with the world around us. And to come home to the body is to disencumber yourself of the assumptions and drive to consume and anxiety that are held in place by this dissociation. And you come home to belonging and caring and a sort of sensitivity to what is around you.
Wow. I'm going to think about that next time I'm hiking up in the mountains near my home.
Yeah,
Uh,
we live with such entitlement, and I think entitlement is one of the one of the darkest states of mind that we can be sucked into.
yeah, like when I sold my house, I sold its title.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so at this point, I want to do the pivot, and okay, so like now I'm going to tell the listeners, this guy who we've just been talking about this stuff, we're going to talk about working out, right? Which is when I first heard that you had written this book, Deep Fitness, I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, I don't even know, like given what are you going to add to like the world of workouts? And I started reading the book, and the first thing that hit me, because you come in soft, right? You don't come in with like all the deepest consciousness embodiment stuff. You just talk about what we know about sarcopenia, which is muscle loss. And within 3 chapters, you had convinced me that not exercising the right way is as much or more of a threat to our health as my focus on diet, on avoiding crap and eating healthy stuff. So maybe we just start there as a soft runway into deep fitness. First of all, what made you interested in even writing the book and even exploring this when you've got such a good gig going in the embodiment world?
Yeah, I mean, I got an email from my co-author, Andrei Yakovenko. Didn't know the guy, and he said, we have this mutual friend who spoke highly of you, and I'd love to introduce you to my workout in my gym. And I've never been much one for gyms, but I'm up for anything. So I went in, and he's the one who introduced me to this workout at his gym, New Element Training. And I fell in love with it immediately. And let me describe the workout. He has a gym with machines. They're Medex machines, which are the best machines I've ever worked on because they adapt to your body. You can adjust them, and they allow you to target muscles without straining anything else. And the workout is very simple. Say I'm in a chest press machine. I move the weight slowly. I lift it and I lower it. And I'm just going slowly. And within a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, I get to the point where I can't move it. My muscles reach momentary failure and I'm trembling and holding it. And finally, it lowers itself. So I've reached the point of momentary muscle failure, and there are huge advantages to reaching that point. And then I move to the next machine. I don't need to do a second set or a third set. There's no benefit to doing more sets because I've reached that point of momentary failure. So in half an hour, you can bring all the major muscle groups of the body to momentary failure because it only takes a minute and a half or 2 minutes. Like that's the sort of target window to reach failure. If you're reaching failure sooner, you add more weight. If you're reaching failure sooner, you decrease the weight so you can go longer. If you're going to 3 minutes, then you increase the weight, which will bring you back. And Andre had invited me to his gym because he'd heard from our mutual friend that I was, as his friend said, an expert in mindfulness, and he lives in your city. You should get in touch with him. And Andre had been told by this friend that the workout was a mindful workout. And Andre said, what's mindfulness? And so he was getting into it and was loving it. And I trained Andre in my modality, which is the embodied present process. And he took the facilitator's training and took workshops. And meanwhile, he was training me in his modality, which is this high intensity training. And our two modalities sort of dovetailed because this workout is so slow, you can be fully present to what is happening in the body. It is an utterly present, mindful experience. I, personally, every workout is a spiritual practice. I don't know how else to say it. I'm so deeply resourced in the whole of my being that it's the time in my week when I am most fully alive.
So for me, before I read this, I know I'm supposed to be mindful and I go for a run and I probably shouldn't be listening to books on tape or podcasts, but it's so boring and so uncomfortable, and the taking my mind out of it just makes it so much easier. And specifically when I've done weight training or, high intensity stuff with weights, whether it's, it's got more of a cardio or a strength element, this is something to absolutely get through, to endure, and I have to say, I don't really have the experience of, I don't think I've had the experience of it being anything close to spiritual or enjoyable or anything that I'm doing other than for some other purpose in the future. It really is pain now for benefit later.
Yeah. It's the opposite for me. My body craves that return to the gym, that aliveness. And there are a couple of things that make that possible. We traditionally have this top-down relationship, like somebody riding a donkey, beating it to go faster. So we are in a state of self-conflict, and that hurts. And the harder you push the body, the more it hurts. So it's like picking up the pencil. It's a very different thing to drop down, to actually drop the center of your awareness, to come to rest in the body and to feel your core. And then the breath becomes like a piston. And it's the sense that the breath is moving the weight. And it's a very, and there's all the difference in the world between what we're used to, which is blowing the breath, and that deep, feeling the breath deep in the pelvic floor and feeling that breath stream support the weight. And as I approach failure, instead of becoming more aggressive and more willful, my awareness becomes more subtle. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. My body has stopped. It's pushing. It just can't push anymore. And I find a subtler level, and I get a little nudge. And I find a subtler level still, and another. I can pulse. And so that as I approach failure, there's just this pulsing, and it's such, for me anyway, it's such interesting territory to explore. It is the deepest encounter with the self, to play along that edge of failure and find one more little push, one more little pulse until I can't. And then there is such a wave of bliss once I drop the weight. It's like if there have been any frustrations or niggly emotions or anxieties, they have gone. I have moved them through my body, and there's this state of pure being where I don't need to do anything. I don't want to do anything. I just am in this sort of avalanche of sensations in the aftermath, and then I go on to the next machine.
So how long does this take?
Half an hour to get through a total body workout. And if you do that once a week, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, I do it twice a week because that accelerates the strength gain. And you know how I'm still getting stronger. I've been doing it for almost 6 years. And it's not that I got stronger and stopped. I mean, it's the strength gains have slowed down, but I can see every week, oh, my time, I'm 3 seconds longer, I'm 10 seconds longer, whatever it is. And, you know, I time myself and write it down every week. And then, you know, I get over 2 minutes and I increase the weight a little bit. So 20 years ago, if I had imagined myself at 70, I think my hope would have been that I wasn't I wasn't deteriorating too quickly. And the reality is I'm getting stronger and stronger still. And there are principles in the book that address that show why it's possible.
Now, you say so once or twice a week. Does that mean that 3 times, 4 times, 5 times is better?
Good question. When you're exercising, your muscles are getting weaker. It's when you leave the exercise that your muscles remodel and get stronger. That remodeling takes 2 to 3 days. If you go back and take that same muscle to failure before the remodeling happens, you've interrupted the remodeling. And you can act. I mean, it's cited in the book an instance where a hockey player was getting in the intense training that he was undergoing. He was losing muscle mass because the training was so frequent. So the recovery is as important as the exercise. The exercise stresses the muscle with, it's called hormesis. The hormesis is a positive stress to the body that incites adaptation. And intense exercise incites adaptations that counteract all the chronic diseases that we associate with aging, that stimulate a rejuvenation of the mitochondria. I mean, there's this global effect that exercise has on the body, and it's the intensity of the exercise that does that. So to go 5 times a week to the gym counterintuitively is counterproductive. There's a weightlifter, Mike Metzner, I think, who talked about his frustration. He was working out 4 to 5 hours at the gym every day. He's a bodybuilder, ended up Mr. Universe or something, and it wasn't working. And he had a phone call with Arthur Jones, who was really one of the pioneers of this form of exercise.
Oh, the Nautilus guy.
The Nautilus guy, the guy who developed Nautilus. Brilliant guy. And Arthur Jones said, well, you're working out too often and you're working out counterproductively. Don't do 3 sets, do 1 set, but do 1 set to failure. And then rest, let your muscles restore, and then come back 3 days later. And that phone call changed his life because he was about to give up. He was so frustrated. I mean, how much more can I do? I'm doing 4 and 5 hours a day at the gym. I can't do more, and it's not working.
So one of the things that I got from the book, and I don't know if this is right or if it was in there or I just sort of, filled it in, was that like this idea of 1 set to failure, and then you don't have to do it again for a couple of days. You don't have to do 3 sets. Like, 'cause so much of my workout had been, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to do pyramid stuff, or okay, now you're tired. Now wait until you can do another 10. And what I got from it is that what you're really doing, if it's just volume builds muscle, then my way works. But what I thought you were saying was that you're actually just giving an instruction to the muscle. You're giving it information. You're presenting it with consciousness, and it knows what to do with that, and you don't have to keep giving it the message. Did I make that up, or is that in there?
No. The purpose of the exercise is to stimulate an adaptation to make the muscle stronger. Now, there's a principle. I talked about some of the principles. There's a principle, the overload principle, that says if you're taxing the muscle in the same way, then it won't be stimulated to get stronger. You have to overload it. Overloading it means taking it to failure. It cannot do the work anymore. So you take it to failure, it's stimulated to adapt. That's all you need. You're just trying to offer it the stimulus to adaptation. And the traditional workout where you're doing 12 reps and then you rest, it tends to be an explosive movement that generates a lot of momentum. That means that you're not working the muscles through the full range of the movement. So they've found that you're working a lot at the beginning, and then the momentum takes over. So if you're moving the weight, I mean, what we recommend is at least 4 seconds lifting and lowering at a minimum. I do. I'll tell you about my workout, which is if I'm on the chest press machine, I'll lift the weight and then I lower it over 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a long time. And then I get to the bottom of that and then I lift it over 30 seconds. And when you're lifting it, 30 seconds is even longer. And then I lower it for 30 seconds. So that's a minute and a half in all. By the end of that negative phase, I am generally at my limit, and then I do that pulsing. I just stay there and go deeper and deeper into the subtlety of what is still there, rather than the coarse willfulness of pushing it.
Gotcha. So the first thing that really confused me. So if you had told me that Philip Shepard, the author of Radical Wholeness, was going to write a book about working out, I would have bet my IRA that it would have been a whole body workout, right? And so you're talking about MedX machines or Nautilus, about isolating muscles. And I'm like, that was a surprise.
So just to say, when I'm doing the workout, I'm doing it from my wholeness. So I say I'm doing a chin up. I am deep in my core, deep in that still center that I feel in the pelvic bowl. And it is that relationship, my wholeness, that is pulling that bar down. So I'm feeling the muscles. Sort of so much is happening, but the impulse is from my wholeness. I am at rest in my body. And, we talk in the book about the difference between willpower and intention. So I am allowing this intention to live through my body rather than flipping into my head with this imperative that turns the practice into something willful.
So that even if you were isolating the pecs or the chain that pushes something, let's say, away from a pushing motion in a lateral direction, the whole body is involved and engaged.
The body is not compartmentalized, is another way of saying it. So I'm not sitting in my head, moving the arms, sitting on this bench. I am fully present to what is passing through my body. And my definition of embodiment is a state in which the whole of your intelligence comes into coherence with the present. The whole of my intelligence is present to this pushing, this lifting of the weight in the chest press. It's not that I've got an imperative in my head that is making my body do it. It's that my body is being summoned into a necessity that it meets and answers.
So I know one of the phrases that you like to play with is like listen to your body, which is what I have always have mostly failed to do around, well, it's Tuesday, I got to do my workout. Yeah, I don't really feel like it. Well, should I listen to my body? Should I do it anyway? Should I take it easy? Should I modify it? First of all, I gave you the setup for listen to the body. So I'd love your rejoinder for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's our culture. Our culture for millennia has been devoted to the head, has been separating, dissociating from the body. So when we think, oh, we should get back in touch with the body, it's like the best we can do is to listen to the body. And if you're listening to the body, that's not embodiment. If you're listening to the body, it's accepting in some way the metaphor that there's a wall separating you from the body. And the best you can do is put your ear to the wall to find out what's happening on the other side of it. So that's, to have encountered hara in Japan as a teenager and to, experience that deep-seated intelligence of the body, in a way, my work is not about listening to the body. It's about listening to the world through the body. It's about that attunement. And so it's not to say there aren't times when listening to the body is important. Like if I'm injured, I will attend to that injury in the way of listening. I am pulled away from the larger present into this need to be with and give love. And, even in clearing some of those orphans, some of those unintegrated energies, there are times where it's, yes, listening to the body, but it's a stage on the way to embodiment. And, I think it's dangerous to mistake it for embodiment. So, when I'm doing the workout, there may be a part of me on a particular day that says, oh God, I'm not up for this. But if I drop into my body, if I, literally drop my awareness to the perineum, I encounter a simple indifference that is fully ready for whatever the present brings my way. And I just do it without the aggro of self-conflict.
Now, to someone who's just hearing that, indifference can sound pretty cold and detached. I'm guessing that's not what the experience is.
No, I mean indifference in the way of we have all these personal anxieties and if you don't feel like doing it, but you push yourself to do it anyway, it hurts. So the indifference, I'm using the word with a slightly different flavor. It is the willingness to be with everything. So it's it's like that word. You want to judge to be disinterested. And disinterested is a completely different word from uninterested. Uninterested means you could care less. Disinterested means you don't have a stake in the outcome. And so that indifference is like disinterested. I can go through this, and I can meet whatever it carries me into.
Gotcha. So the other thing that I circled as you were talking was when you were talking about coming down slowly with the load, that you can feel trembling. So I interviewed David Berselli a year ago, who does tremoring as a means of helping people come back into their bodies. Is there any connection between the trembling that can happen when you're, approaching muscle failure and the kind of tremoring that, let's say, a gazelle would do after escaping from a predator to kind of clear its nervous system?
I mean, I can only speak from personal experience on this. I hesitate to make any grand generalizations about it, but what Berselli is doing with his active release therapy, trauma TRE, is allowing the body to do what it needs to, like putting it into this state of disorganization. In a way, it's no longer being controlled, and when it's no longer being controlled, then what needs to come through can come through. So in my workout, there's a similar thing, because I'm yes, in a way I'm controlling it, but in another way I'm not. I'm riding it. And when I'm in my core doing the workout, it can be a little like a bioenergetics experience. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where you're like, you've got a tennis racket and you're beating a pillow and yelling. Well, my core will, it can get noisy. It's not like this placid sitting on a cushion thing. This life is coursing through me, and that is vocalized from my core, not by decision, but by necessity. And so there is a clearing out with every session that I feel an affinity between that and Berselli's work, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about every time I've done the sort of tennis racket or punching a mattress against the wall or anything like that, whether it's just by myself or guided by a helper or in a group, there's always a part of my mind that's watching the performance or wondering if it's a performance. And when I did the TRE, there came a moment where I'm like, okay, am I doing this? Oh my gosh, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And it sounds like for when you're doing the weight, you've put yourself in a position where it's clear that something is happening, that you're just hanging on for dear life as opposed to directing.
And the sense is allowing this to pass through me rather than, as you say, doing it myself. It's opening myself to whatever energy is there that can respond to this necessity. And the experience is one of that energy passing through me. I'm not doing it, I'm allowing it.
All right. So now I want to come to the part where it's all about me. So I just moved to a small town in Spain. I'm sure there's gyms somewhere. I've never liked gyms. I'm sure New Element is a very different vibe. But like, can this be done with body weight? Does it have to involve machines? How do I get started? How can people begin to explore this?
No, thank you for that. There are actually more exercises in the book that are body weight exercises than machine exercises. So the book lays out a number of exercises that you can do with machines, and and there are photographs, and then even more exercises that you can do with body weight. And the body weight exercises are hugely effective. There's another thing I should mention. Andre, the co-author, has a website, newelementtraining.com. And on that website, there's a little resources tab. And if you click on the resources tab, you have access to videos of every single exercise in the book where Andre is coaching someone through the exercise. Now, it's a membership, but it costs $10 a month, and you can cancel it at any time. We're just trying to recover some of the costs of the filming. But to actually see Andre coaching someone through the bodyweight exercises brings it to life in a different way. The other thing I should mention is that Andre he and his staff, his trainers, do online coaching. So you can be at home and they will coach you through, for half an hour, through a series of exercises that will leave your whole body trembling.
Great, gotcha. So the other thing that I need, so having moved here, there's been a drought for years, so there's no grass anywhere. So my sport is ultimate frisbee, and if I want to play it here, I have to play it on the beach. And what I discovered very quickly is that a 30-second jog on beach sand is worse than a 10-mile run. So I could not believe how exhausted I was getting after just running for a few seconds. I've been looking it up because I also can't move. Like on grass, I can sort of plant a foot and cut in one direction and get open. And here I'm just sort of digging myself deeper and people are just running past me. So what I discovered was that the muscles that I've typically used to run only get me in contact with the base layer of sand. And that I need a whole different set of muscles. I need the hip extensors. I need the glutes. They're apparently not strong enough, and so I have no speed, and I have no cardio stamina for this. Does the deep fitness address cardio, or do I need to do running or other cardio workouts in addition if I want to, be ready to compete?
Yeah, so the deep fitness certainly does address cardio if you keep the interval between exercises short. So when you're going to failure on a leg press or a wall sit, your cardio is activated, and then if you're already into the next one 30 seconds later, there's a cardio load. So there was a study done at West Point Academy to test, Arthur Jones's approach to exercise versus the traditional exercise. And, West Point wants its cadets to be as fit as possible. And they had these two groups, and they had like 60 measurements of fitness, from flexibility to cardio to strength to on every single metric. The Arthur Jones exercise on the machines improved fitness more than the traditional exercise done by the other group. And cardio and flexibility were part of that. So absolutely. And to understand too that the primary cardio adaptations do not happen in the heart and the lungs. The primary cardio adaptations happen in the muscle itself. When a muscle is overloaded, it activates capillarization. Because suddenly the muscles are needing oxygen, and you need new capillaries to deliver that oxygen. There's a really interesting study that's cited in the book with cyclists who they were testing their cardio fitness, and there was a group of them, and they tested it to begin with, and then they cycled. They trained on an ergometer 3 or 4 times a week for a month, but they only trained with one leg. And then their fitness was tested at the end of the month. And when they pedaled with the leg that they trained, their fitness, I think it was 23% better. When they pedaled with the leg that hadn't been trained, it was the same. So the adaptations weren't in the heart and the lungs, which would have supported that other leg. The adaptations were in the muscle itself.
Wow. And then they never could go home because they just walked in circles.
Yeah, they were lopsided. Yeah.
So flexibility, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a huge issue for me. I've had back issues for a long time. When we met, I don't know if you remember, you gave me a protocol for plantar fasciitis, which I found a protocol that actually works, except it only works when I do it. So
damn,
I've been a little disappointed. I thought it was going to be better than it was, but it's about 12 minutes twice a week. But does this work? Does the deep fitness, can that actually address the fact that when I try to bend over, that it's hard to tell from a distance?
Yeah, just to address flexibility for a minute, there's a form of fitness developed by Bob Cooley called resistance stretching. And it's, again, so counterintuitive. He says if you are stretching a muscle, you want to engage it. And so, you're engaging the hamstring as you're stretching it rather than relaxing it. And it's hugely effective. Well, then when you think of lowering a weight, your muscles are engaged as they are being extended. They're lengthening as they're engaged. And so that's exactly the principle that Bob Cooley works on. And I love resistance stretching. It's the only form of stretching I do at this point. The other thing about...
Where can people find out about it? Is that Cooley?
Yeah, he has a web... Yeah, Cooley. And he has a studio in Santa Barbara that I visited. So I had a session there, which was fabulous. And he's got a website, the name of which I forget, but I'm sure it would come up if you Google his name. He's also got a book about resistance stretching, the name of which I also forget. I mentioned it in Deep Fitness. If you were to look up Bob Cooley in the index, you should find it there.
I'll throw it into the show notes.
Yeah, good. And there's also an exercise in Deep Fitness specifically for strengthening the back. What happens with the back is the multifidus muscles get weaker and weaker because they're very difficult to isolate. So there's an exercise that actually we learned from Doug McGuff, where you're lying on your back and you're just arching in a very specific way, arching the lower back and holding it. And you repeat that, and that strengthens those multifidus muscles to help with the back.
Awesome. All right. So I have it on Kindle. So I packed light. So I kind of wish I had the physical book here. It'd be easier to stick bookmarks into all the exercises.
Yeah, I should. I mean, I just for people who know, they're the machine exercises and we have the body weight exercises, and with the Kindle there's a PDF that you should have with it that you can download that has all those exercises in it.
No kidding. I don't think I saw that. I better check.
Oh yeah, you need the PDF.
Okay,
for sure.
Cool. Is there anything that you think we should talk about that I haven't brought up?
The only thing I'd like to mention is that the book is based on research in the last 15 years that hasn't permeated into our sort of common knowledge. And, sarcopenia was discovered that as we grow old, our muscles, we're losing muscle mass unless you take counteractive measures. And the most obvious counteractive measure to the loss of muscle mass is strength training. And muscle, we used to think muscle had one primary function, which was to move us around, but it's got two. The second primary function is it's like a hormone factory, that muscle creates these messenger molecules called myokines. And I think they've discovered something like 1,000 myokines that go through the body and affect every organ, every tissue within it, and promote health. So myokines are basically why exercise is so good for us. The stronger a muscle is, and the more intensely it works, the more myokines it produces. So there is this longevity, there's this rejuvenation that happens through the whole body as a result of these myokines. So what we now understand, that people, specialists know, but not the general public, is that muscle is the bedrock of your metabolic health. It's muscle that supports, and the working of muscle that supports the health of the entire organism. And so, to give it half an hour once or twice a week, to know that this form of working out, it's simply the most effective workout I've ever encountered. It works. It just works.
Mm. And so for folks who do belong to a gym or have access to a gym, can they take the book and go just use it on the machines that they've got?
Absolutely. I mean, I travel teaching workshops all over the world, and wherever I go, I find a gym, and I've worked out on, 6 different models of machines in gyms, and it works. It works. Mm. And we recommend machines because with free weights, if you're doing a bench press and you're going to failure, it gets dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But something like a wall sit.
Absolutely. You can do anywhere.
Right.
Yeah. And to time it, to time yourself and see how long you go, and then come back and you'll notice your time's getting longer and longer.
Yeah. So if I can do a wall sit for 2 minutes and 5 seconds, do I then hold something heavy, or do I how do I graduate if I'm not adding weights?
You can add weight, or you can just go longer. I mean, if you're going 5 minutes, you're creating the stimulus the muscle needs to get stronger.
I see. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it worked. I'm inspired.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's such a pleasure to talk with you about all this, Howie. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for writing this book. So this is one of those cases where I know you, I know your stuff. It's amazing in this field, but I'm not really sure if you really, but my gosh, I've shared this with people who are despairing of getting fit again because of so many injuries, because of surgeries, because of lack of access, or because the fitness world has not been welcoming to them.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're spiritual people. And they don't want to, they don't just want to hang out around, people who are pouring hormones and steroids into their bodies. And the culture of weightlifting is certainly a culture of, power over.
Yes. Yeah. And you're showing strength, and our focus is on developing it. And there's a difference. There's a real difference. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So the book is called Deep Fitness. It's got a long subtitle that people don't need to know. But
Deep Fitness.
What is it?
The mindful, science-based strength training method to transform your well-being in just 30 minutes a week.
Great. And for people who want to follow you more globally, where are you found and producing information? How can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you for that. My website is embodiedpresent.com. And there's lots of free stuff on there that people can sample and try out.
Okay. And I'll say, if anyone has a chance to go to one of your workshops, they should do it. And I say that from experience. Do you have any coming up?
Yeah, I'm in the States. I've got a 5-day retreat in Portland. I've got workshops in Asheville and Boise coming up, and one in Alabama in February. And I'm in Europe. If people are in Europe, I'm in Europe in November. In
Spain?
Well, I'm in England. I'm in Vienna.
We don't consider England Europe anymore.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm in Belfast. That's in Europe.
Okay. Vienna's not that far.
Yeah, there you go. Be it just
okay, so embodiedpresent.com and all the books from New Self, New World, Radical Wholeness, and Deep Fitness. This is such a gift to me and to the world. This really is, it feels like a form of activism that is a kind that we can do in the here and now, as opposed to the kind of activism that we have to hope somebody votes or somebody shows up.
On my website, there's a little piece I wrote called The Embodiment Manifesto, and in it, there's a line something like, "Becoming embodied is one of the most political acts you can make." Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Philip, thank you so much for writing the book and for all the time you spent helping people and for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it, and I've been looking forward to this, and I'm just basking. My body is basking in the present joy of connection.
Oh, it's lovely, Howie. I thank you for this opportunity to talk about something that is so dear to my heart.
And that's a wrap. You can get the show notes with links to everything we talked about and the New Elements training at plantyourself.com/563. So movement news, got some new stuff. I played paddle last night for the first time. Paddle, P-A-D-A-L, and the A has an accent over it, is a sport that's really popular here. Apparently it's popular in Mexico and other parts of Latin America. It's sort of a cross between tennis, squash, and racquetball. And I guess not too dissimilar from elements of pickleball, although I've never actually seen pickleball because I was a snob about that. But it's a small enclosed tennis court-ish thing. People play doubles, and I played for the first time last night. And it was really fun being a beginner at a sport that I know I'm going to get good at because I've been playing racket sports all my life. And it was fun to kind of see the brain working every time I hit a ball and it didn't do what I wanted it to do. It's kind of this really fun learning. I kind of wish that my language learning would happen in the same sort of automatic way, but I guess the kind of kinesthetic feedback you get from a sport is different. Anyway, did that last night for the first time, had a great time, and I look forward to a lot more of that. I'm about to head out to Qigong on the beach to start my day, after posting this episode. And that's about it for me. So wishing everybody a great week, and I'll talk to you again next time. Next week I have another wonderful interview, a return guest, Veronica Monet. We're talking about her work as a coach, helping people free themselves from shame. And we talk specifically about the modality she uses, internal family systems. I hope you'll join me for that. Until next time, be well, my friends.